Hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Gustitus, and today we're having our advanced workshop on clearing the foggy brain. Thank you, everybody who's joining us live and those who are watching the recording. This topic is something that I know that I could benefit from. And all the things that I've learned in my training with functional medicine and as a chiropractor have helped me manage this issue for myself. But there's a lot of factors that contribute to having this issue called brain fog. And we'll go over those today. We'll cover some of the causes. We'll cover some of the things that we can do in the clinic and some things that you can do on your own to help yourself. So let's get started. All right. So what is brain fog? Brain fog has many names. Some call it mental fog. Some call it constipation of the brain. Some call it just feeling out of it. There's something called fibro fog for those who have fibromyalgia. The prevalence is pretty high. There's a study done in the frontiers of neuroscience in June of 2024. Out of 25,000 plus participants, 28% of them reported having brain fog. That's a pretty high number. And, it can come in various shapes and sizes. Sometimes it can just be temporary, like short term, where you have a few moments where you feel out of it. You feel like, yeah, I can't focus. You can't recall a name. Maybe you just feel like you can't concentrate in order to solve a problem or even to read something. You just can't get your thoughts focused on what is in front of you. And then, sometimes it can be more longer term, where you just every day you find that you're just having a difficult time your brain focused on tasks and you feel like your brain tired. That's another way of saying it. Maybe you feel like, yeah, just I always feel like my brain is doesn't have the energy it needs, or it feels like I need sleep, or it feels like, because of my health issues, that yeah, I'm always not able to think or think clearly the way I want to. Um, Sometimes people are going into another room of the house and they forget why they went into that room. The difference between brain fog and that which might be more related to dementia is um, dementia being neurodegeneration or degenerative changes of the brain, is that brain fog is more like, I can't remember something today. And dementia or neurodegeneration is more linked to, can I do the functions of my day? Do I lose the ability to do the things that I need to do in terms of activities of my day, whether that's, my work, whether it's, putting my clothes on or cooking or remembering how to do things. I mean, that's where it starts to be an indicator or a more worrisome sign. Either way, I still would look at brain fog or this feeling of, my brain isn't working, it isn't as sharp as it should be, as something that is concerning. If it's short term, because maybe you're experiencing the loss of a loved one. Maybe you didn't sleep well last night. Maybe you're having a hangover from too much alcohol the night before. All those could lead to some short term, some temporary brain fog that, it's recoverable. It's something that you have a clear reason of why, maybe I'm too stressed out. Maybe I have so much going on in my life and I just need a break. I need to call a timeout. And those situations, you can see that if you just took action, if you just stopped with the insult or the strain on your brain and gave it enough of what it needed, which was maybe some rest and some nutrients and some energy, then it recovers. And if that's the case, then I'm not as worried. But you do that over the long haul, and you're continuing to strain the brain and strain its ability to heal and repair, and also you and your life and straining your ability to do your day-to-day tasks and to perform at your best. So that's where it becomes a bigger issue. And long-term causes, we'll get into this a little more later. But beyond the day-to-day or week-to-week, issues like stress and poor quality sleep, you can have chronic health problems and chronic inflammation and toxic buildup in our body that can cause an ongoing insult to the brain and its function. So, like I was alluding to, some causes of brain fog, there are many potential ones. I was trying to be complete. I don't want to overwhelm you with all these different topics, but each one could be a subject and a webinar on its own. but just with respect to brain fog and what can we do about it, as I said, stress, being aware of, am I asking too much of me right now beyond my current ability to produce? Stretching ourselves to grow, that's one thing, but an ongoing excessive demand on our body, on our brain, on our ability to produce and to do work is stressful. The same with, or in a relationship that's just not working well. I don't see how to make that work. And that can become stressful because, you don't know how to solve the problem. You don't know how to get back to seeing eye to eye. And so those are situations that can overwhelm us little by little, and you start to add them up, and our brain can't handle too many of those straws on its proverbial back, and it can break. So other issues, sleep deprivation. Sleep is when we repair. Sleep is when we process the day's learning and memories, and it's an extremely important factor for our overall health, not just brain health. But one of the key areas of where it is has greatest impact is on brain health. And so, excuse me, when it comes to sleep deprivation, prolonged lack of sleep does lead to a very notable and measurable decline in brain function. Altered gut microbiome, you've heard about the gut being the second brain and the gut brain connection. We've done this, we've covered this in other previous conversations and trainings. The microbiome is the ecosystem of bacteria that lives in your gut. It's been assessed or estimated to have between around 500 trillion. Sorry, I almost got my number wrong. It's not a billion or billion, it's trillion. 500 trillion bacterial cells in your gut. 50 trillion cells are our own, and on top of that, we have 500 trillion gut bacteria. So when that bacterial composition and the ecosystem is off, it changes how nutrients are provided to our body. It changes how food is processed and digested, and it changes how the gut lining, where the majority of our immune system lives, is is actually maintained and stimulated. So when we have an altered gut microbiome, it can dramatically change how our brain works because of this communication that happens from the gut up to the brain. So that's an area to look at. Immune health. When you have an infection, if you have the flu or a bad cold and you just feel tired and run down, that's not the time where we're going to do, higher level math, or we're not going to sit down and try to write and digest some complex thinking. We just need to rest. Don't give me complicated stuff right now. I just need to put my head on a pillow and and cool it for a little while. And if that's a reality because of an acute infection, that's one thing. But sometimes we have chronic infections, like where we have sinusitis, or we have gingivitis, or we have a UTI, or chronic, chest cold that just doesn't seem to go away. That's a constant drag on our energy, and our brain consumes 20% of the body's energy. And when it's being siphoned off to fight an ongoing immune challenge, then the brain doesn't get as much because that energy went towards that immune function. Chronic inflammation is also produced by the immune system and can relate to uh, chronic infections, like I said, but also can relate to chronic levels of insult, like could be food sensitivities, could be toxins. Um, it can be unhealed injuries like structural, in our spine, in our joints, things that just are ongoing aggravated joint problems. And that's one of the things we address in chiropractic. I'll talk about that later. But chronic inflammation is a drag on the brain that those inflammatory chemicals alter neuronal function, the neurons of the cells, the nerve cells in the brain, and or anywhere in the body. Actually, those are just cells. Sorry, brain cells are neurons, and we have to watch inflammation. Autoimmunity also can produce chronic inflammation. Autoimmunity is the self-attack. So it's when your immune system turns on you instead of fighting a microbe or an invader. So autoimmunity, things like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, multiple sclerosis, very specific to the nerve system and the brain. Any of those can really drag on the immune system, further pulling energy away from the brain because of that chronic inflammatory activity. Hormonal imbalances, any too high or too low of chemicals, of hormones, whether it be progesterone, estrogen, or testosterone, can lead to poor brain function. As we age, with menopause, for women, estrogen levels go down, and that can affect the levels. It affects the levels of estrogen, and that can affect the levels of brain focus and brain function. Same with men, testosterone levels go down with age, and that too can lead to more instances of brain fog. When thyroid levels go down, thyroid is responsible. Thyroid hormone is responsible for any of the cells in the body getting the energy they need and producing the energy that they need to do their daily work and their life-giving functions. So when thyroid levels are low, then we see also poor energy in the body, poor energy in the brain, and we can see issues of brain fog. Concussions lead to a lot of different factors related to brain fog. One is just neuron damage, brain cell damage. If they're dying off or they're struggling because they're damaged, that's an issue. If there's inflammation, which concussions lead to inflammation, that can lead to the effect of the neurons not functioning the way they're supposed to because of the inflammatory effect. And lastly, gut issues result from concussions. So within about 6 hours of a concussion, you can have leaky gut. I don't know if anybody knew that, but that's some interesting studies that are out there showing that that's a big connection between hitting our head and gut-related leaky intestinal impermeability, which is the technical term. And that can lead to ingestion, or I should say absorption of nutrients and or chemicals that we don't want to have in our bloodstream because of those gaps between the cells in our gut lining. And these particles can come into our bloodstream and cause inflammatory effects. Metabolic disorders and diabetes. So having too low a blood sugar, hypoglycemia, or too high a blood sugar, hyperglycemia, both of those ends of the spectrum can affect our brain health and brain function, leading to poor brain like focus, concentration issues. Anemia, going back to the energy issues. If you don't have enough oxygen in your bloodstream, same with cardiovascular issues, not enough oxygen flowing through those, maybe they're clogged arteries, or maybe we have vascular damage. Either way, anemia or cardiovascular issues affect the amount of red blood cells and the amount of oxygen that they can carry, or the amount of circulation of that existing oxygen, as with cardiovascular issues, leading to poor amounts of oxygenation of the brain and therefore low energy, poor brain function. That was a lot. I just condensed a lot into that time. I hope it was understandable. Those who are listening in and are here live, I hope that's helpful. But that gives you a good broad view of, there could be a lot of different factors contributing to brain fog. That's not just like a single pill, take this pill and magically fix it, or have some more caffeine and call it a day. It's more complicated than that. If you look at this screen, you can see this beautiful tree with a really robust root system. We use at Whole Body Health Chiropractic. This is the origin of our logo, which is the tree of life. The root system is so big, and I like using this image because that is our lifestyle and an environment. That is the main driver of all the things coming into our body that is fueling us, but it also can be the things that are toxic to us or interfering with proper health. So we have to choose our lifestyle and choose our environment carefully. When that information or the nutrients come in, our nervous system detects it. And when it detects it, it goes through our spine up to our brain. Our brain will process and figure out, okay, is this healthy nutrients or healthy stimulation or unhealthy? It assigns a value to it. And then that information goes out and the nutrients go out to our organs, like our GI system, simultaneously. So when we eat something, our GI tract will take that in and start absorbing it, but simultaneously we'll get a signal up to our brain. Well, what was all that? What did we just eat? Is this healthy for us or is this toxic? When we get exposed to something like exercise or a conversation, our brain will take that information through our nervous system, through our spine up to our brain, and then translate that into, was that a good, healthy exposure or something that is potentially problematic? And you can see how the importance of the spine being that main conduit, and I put it right in the middle where the tree trunk is, because it's the main conduit for all that information, all those resources coming up into that tree, into our body, and then up to the brain where the main processing happens. And then it expresses itself in the form of leaves and fruit and, the branches in the tree. And for our bodies, it's the cells, it's the organs, it's the main units of function in the body. So poor alignment in the spine affects brain function, just like I was saying. So when the spinal alignment gets off, then that information that's coming in gets distorted. And when that information gets distorted, our brain is only seeing the end product, not what it was originally. So if I'm standing crooked, if my spine is crooked, that information is going to be altered and it's going to distort the clarity of what the brain is seeing. And that will affect how well the brain can process that information. So as you see on the right, disrupted sensory motor integration and processing. So sensory, so senses, taking in information, and motor is the output, the response to that information. So garbage in, as you say in computer language, garbage in, garbage out. So we put in good stuff, then the brain has good, clear information to work with, and it can create an output that is clear and effective. But if the brain gets unclear information, imagine like a cell phone conversation where you don't quite understand what's being said to you. Like, hey, honey, let's have pizza for dinner, right? And you're like, okay, I don't know what you just said. I think you said something about dinner. Don't worry about dinner. You don't bring the pizza home. Well, guess what you're going to have for dinner? You're going to have leftovers, right? Because you didn't get the message. And if that happens in the body and the brain has to guess, it'll guess inaccurately and it'll do its best job given the information that it receives. Other effects are decreased nerve conduction velocity, meaning the speed at which the brain is sending information through the spinal cord. Decreased ocular motor control. So imagine with respect to brain fog, the information isn't traveling clearly, quickly, and it's also I'm having a difficult time controlling my eyes to follow whether I'm reading something or I'm viewing something. Also, spinal misalignment affects blood flow to the brain. So not just ocular motor control, not just speed based off of misalignments, but also blood flow. So if the neck curve is supposed to be like this, like a banana shape, and it's like this, that stretches the spinal cord and decreases the blood flow because it's stretching all those tissues and the vessels and constricting them to a degree and causing decreased circulation into the brain. That isn't good for cognition or focus. Holistic approaches. Let's get into some holistic chiropractic approaches to brain fog. So I'll wrap up this chiropractic aspect of it. When we do chiropractic adjustments, we're activating the prefrontal cortex of the brain. This is the part in the front where we do most of our focus and concentration. That's where that happens. The adjustments are known to activate the prefrontal cortex, which is wonderful with respect to brain function. It also increases the positive signals going to the brain. When your spine gets realigned and those vertebrae are moving again, when before they were stuck and misaligned, now that's a positive signal going up to the brain saying, hey, this area is moving again. It was shut down. We brought it back online. It's part of the team again. So there's 24 immovable bones in the spine. They all need to do their job. That positive signal is of body awareness. A sense of body awareness is called proprioception. It's one of our many senses. There's 5 main senses that you grow up learning about, like sight and smell, those 5. But the other 3 that you don't often hear about are proprioception, which is body sense, vestibular, which many people hear of, and then interoception, which is the type of balancing that happens within our gut. So all that information goes up to the brain, and we want it to be clean and effective. The last type of effective chiropractic adjustments is decreased negative signals. So when we have a misalignment and a locked up vertebra in our spine, there are negative signals produced, meaning that a misalignment is stressful to the body because that can be harmful to the nerves, harmful to the joints, the discs, and the ligaments and the muscles at that area. So if you look at in the middle of the screen here, see that x-ray of that curvature that's in red, how it's going the wrong way compared to the green line. That's the banana shape going the proper direction. All those nerves and those levels of the spine are misaligned and going the wrong direction. And that can produce negative body signals going up to the brain that is stressful and can contribute to poor function of the brain. Now, when we look at spinal correction, that's the other side of what we do in our office. We restore the spinal curves. We relax the spinal cord tension. We enable faster nerve conduction. We enhance sensory motor integration, and we allow proper blood flow. So all those things I've been talking about with the adjustments, they unlock and release that effect, but we also see an improvement when we start to work on the curves themselves, because that takes the pressure off of the big nerve, which is the spinal cord. So other approaches that we take in our office, we do functional diagnostic testing. So there's many different things that could be tested. Actually, I thought of another one while I'm looking at this list. But starting with dietary habits, what are you doing in terms of how you eat? What are you including in your diet? When do you eat? How much protein you're getting? How much sugar are you getting? What are the nutrients you're getting from the variety of produce that you're including? What's your exercise routine? What's your sleep quality? Looking at stressors in your life, measuring blood sugar, like the actual glucose measurement, looking at hemoglobin A1C, looking at how that's affecting your insulin levels. All things we can test. We can measure toxins. We can measure inflammation levels. We can also look at food sensitivities that are provoking inflammation. We can look at gut health, look at like GI testing, look at the microbiome composition, look at hormone levels, thinking of thyroid or sex hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. And then we can also look, hey, do you have any autoimmunity? A lot of people are having that more and more today than before. Great if not, but some people have a collection of symptoms that would indicate maybe there's something going on that needs to be addressed in that department. So those are tests that we could do. Now, with regard to what to do, here's some things. Exercise. Do some movement every day. And here's the thing. Anytime you can get yourself moving, you're going to stimulate your brain. Nutrients for your brain include exercise. So one of the key ones, think of it as a required vitamin every day, is you have to take your exercise vitamin. So it's essential for brain health. It improves BDNF, and I just did the acronym. That's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Um, and what that is basically like fertilizer for your brain cells, your neurons. So when you exercise and you stimulate your brain, you're challenging it to grow. Your neurons say, okay, we better respond to the challenge at hand that's facing us. And so then the brain says, okay, throw some growth in that direction, increase the activity, or I should say, the nutrients available to those neurons so they can respond to the challenge we're giving it. So think about it. You go for a walk and you huff and puff, or you lift some weights, like, wow, that's exceeding my current capacity. Your brain processes that and says, send some growth that way, because we have to adapt to that. The brain thinks that's going to be part of your new normal. The problem becomes if you don't do it every day, if you don't do it consistently, you don't have to lift the same weights every day, but you need to do it on a frequency that becomes a regular environmental exposure. Your brain starts to believe, oh, this is going to be a part of our new routine. Therefore, we need to adapt to it. So every one of those exposures, your brain says, okay, let's respond and grow to a new level. As long as it's not too much, not exceeding your capacity too much, but you have to exceed your capacity some. If you stay at your current comfort zone, there's no stimulation, there's no gap between what you're asking it to do and where you are, and therefore there's not as much stimulation. Those who do high intensity interval training, you get a lot of this stimulation. It's a short burst of an intense workout, like 20 seconds, where you're doing all out. And that all out intensity really increases this brain derived neurotrophic factor, the BDNF, compared to other workouts. But you can also get it on a small level over a longer term if you went for a 30 or a 60-minute jog or bike ride, for example. So you still get it. It's just lower levels over a longer period. Get out of your comfort zone, like I said, and change it up. Don't give your brain the same stimulation every day. It's important that you give variety. And it's also good for your own interest levels. I mean, I get bored doing the same thing all the time. But if it's something you love and you want to do it every day, have at it. Just make sure that you're consistent. And then, like I said, be well-rounded, include some stretching, include some balance work, include strength training, lift heavy stuff. All right, lift heavy stuff that's not easy to heavy. That's good. Not easy to carry. That's important for your brain because it's going to challenge it, but it's also going to challenge your bones, challenge your muscles, and challenge your metabolism to respond to that challenge. And and so that's super important as we age is to give all those systems enough of a challenge. Otherwise, they start to downgrade, downregulate, saying, okay, we don't need the bones to be so dense. They get weaker and thinner. The muscles, we don't need as many. They get weaker and thinner. And then also same with the brain. I don't have as much to do. I'm going to downregulate. We don't want that. We want to stay active, stay functional until our last day. And that requires activity. If you ever saw the Blue Zones documentary or read about it, those folks in the 5 blue zones where the people are living readily to 100 years old in a functional state, they're active all the time, all the way into those later years of life. So let's use that as a role model or example. Other things, key nutrients. Some key brain related nutrients include omega-3s, vitamin D3, magnesium, B9 and B12, and vitamin C. Now, some of the things you should also include on your plate, make sure you're doing an anti-inflammatory type diet because that will also keep those inflammatory chemicals at a lower level and help you manage other incoming things that have provoked inflammation or ongoing infections or things of that nature. So those need to be addressed, but when it comes to your diet, omega-3s and vitamin D3 are key for lowering inflammation and try to get that plate to be very colorful in terms of looking at the rainbow. Get your dark leafy greens like kale, get your rainbow colored fruits and vegetables, and then get some cruciferous veggies in there like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, etc. Those are essential to get as well. Detoxing. We're exposed to so many toxins all the time from the containers that our food are held in or kept in when it comes to what we buy from the store, but also just what they're sprayed with in the fields. Follow the EWG.org guidelines when it comes to the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. If they're the Dirty Dozen list, if those are the foods you're buying, make sure you buy those organic, and then otherwise buy organic as much as possible. Follow intermittent fasting. And what that means is you'll narrow your food window when you eat down to about 8 or even 6 hours. So that doesn't mean that you don't eat. You just eat the food that you were eating within those 6 or 8 hours. So some people do it between 12 and 6, some between 12 and 8. You shift the window, what works for you, but somewhere in that range is healthy. And then the rest of the day, you're not taking in food. You can maybe drink coffee, you can drink water, you can drink tea, but you're not giving your digestive system work. You're allowing it to cleanse and to clean house. Remove the dietary toxins, like I was saying. Do some sauna to help you clear out the accumulated toxins. Have enough fiber in your diet, like 25 grams plus per day. Look up different foods. You can find that on Google. Just look up foods that are good. The produce section is a place to start. Oatmeal is great. You can add things like psyllium husk or flaxseed. Those are good fiber sources. And then plenty of water. The solution to pollution is dilution. When you drink enough water, you're going to dilute what's going on in your body, what you're having there, to allow your cells not to be so uh, concentrated in toxins. So, and also helps you cleanse and wash it out. All right, sleep. Sleep is essential for brain repair. When it comes to brain fog, other things we can do for the brain are getting enough sleep. Try to get, they say, 7 to 9 hours. If you want to wear a device that helps track your quality of sleep, like a Whoop, this is WHOOP device, or an Aura ring. I don't have one, but it kind of looks like this, honestly. An Aura ring, OURA. Consider those devices, or a smartwatch. All these different things can track your sleep, or you can just, have a pen and paper next to your bed and just jot down, hey, I slept 7.5 hours. I felt great. I slept 9 hours. I felt groggy. Whatever. You start tracking yourself too. It's another option. Sleep is essential. It's when our brain repairs. It's when we recoup our energy and our body processes memories and learning from the day before. It's important that you focus on consistency, consistent bedtime, consistent waking. I know you might be tired on the weekend and maybe you need to recover, you need a little more sleep, fine, sleep in. But just note that the more you shift your going to bed and your waking times, your circadian rhythm, your daily rhythm will alternate. And I should say will fluctuate, and that can affect your hormone production and your like cortisol and other hormones, and that can affect your ability to stay or to get awake, to be awake and to be alert in the morning. And it affects your appetite, it affects all types of things. Circadian rhythm is super important, and sleep is one of those things that controls and regulates that when it's consistent. The 3-2-1 rule: 3 hours before bedtime, no food; 2 hours before bedtime, no exercise; and 1 hour before bedtime, no screen time. Ideally, increase that 1 hour to more. So more of a gap between screen time, screening like computer time, phones, TV, just to downshift exposure to blue light that you get from those screens, and also the stimulation from all the things that you might be reading and learning about on those screens. Just try to pick up a book and do something that's non-electronic that last hour before bedtime. Cooler temperatures are key for the bedroom. It helps you sleep better. And regular exercise also helps improve sleep, helps you burn off the energy that you've accumulated, the stress that is accumulated in your body during the day. And then you're just ready just to zonk out. I always sleep better when I've exercised adequately. And lastly, stress reduction. How do we do that? Well, there's a lot of ways. There's a lot of things. You can seek therapy. You can talk it out with your friends or family, talk it out with your spouse, or you can write a list of your own stressors. What are the things that are bothering you now? What are the things that you can control? Circle those. And what are the things you can't control? If you can't control it, let's not put energy on it. Let's focus on what we can do and try to practice empowerment of what we can do, and pick one of those things that you can control and work on it. Try to get a level of control, or I should say empowerment, over that issue in your life, so you're on top of it. Practice relaxation. That means giving your brain, your body, enough time to practice calming down. Spend enough time out of that high intensity zone in order to be good at it. If you're practicing high intensity all the time, you'll get good at that, but you won't be very good at calming down. And that constant strain, the constant demand, taxes us and overloads us. So one of the things you can do is 4-7-8 breathing. Breathe in for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8. Practice that multiple times during the day, especially before you go to bed. That will help oxygenate your brain, help you have enough time to absorb that oxygen, and also help slow down your breathing and help you become more mindful of your breathing during that time that you're practicing it. do some meditation, engage in prayer. Those are times where you're actually really focusing in on your consciousness. You're letting your thoughts go. You're getting more in tune with your spirit and your internal self, kind of letting your day and all the humanity of your day go and focusing more on your divinity, your inner self, your inner soul. I think that's super important to help you just create some balance between the demands of our days and please spend some time in nature. Nature to me is like the ultimate cathedral, and you're out there in nature. I mean, I love it. It recenters me. The pace of nature is consistent and slow and steady, much more consistent than the pace of our day-to-day lives in this fast-paced world of high tech and high demand. So when you're out in nature, listen to the sounds, listen to the birds, listen to the trees rustling in the wind, and that is something that's very grounding and can be very helpful for brain fog and can help you recenter and get your brain focused on the here and now. I hope these suggestions are helpful for you. There's a lot in there. I know that if you have questions, just please schedule a consultation with me. I'm happy to talk it over, at your next appointment. If you're a current patient, if you want to work on a game plan, if you want to do some functional testing, some diagnostic testing, let's do it. Let's review what your blood work looks like. Let's do a food diary and an exercise routine diary, and let's see what we can do to decrease the strain that is overloading your brain and then increase the nutrient level so you have a chance to recover and strengthen your brain body pathways. I really appreciate being here. Join us for the next month's event. It'll be another Tuesday at noon, and we'll give you an update and a heads up on when that's happening. So have a great day. Please please share this. Once you see, there's going to be a replay email of this that we will send out. If you would be so kind, share this with any loved ones that you feel need to hear this information. I look forward to seeing you soon, and have a great day.